You're listening to Straight from the Hat with Ben Vaughn.
Every day starts with a broken heart. I must be too sensitive for this world. Well, I know it ain't right to cry every night. I must be too sensitive for this world.
He's had a career filled with twists and turns as a performer, songwriter, composer for film and TV, and record producer. For Ben Vaughn, the best part of the journey has been the colorful characters he's encountered along the way. His friend Laura Pocatello, who works for Sun Records in Nashville, wrote the names of those characters down and placed them in a hat. Each episode, she'll select names at random and let Ben relive the stories. No pre-planning, no filter, just telling it like it was, straight from the hat.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Laura. How are you?
I'm doing great here in Nashville. How are things out in the desert today?
Things are great. I just recorded a theme song. The local radio station out here has a lost pets report called Cruisin' Critters. And I love that. Yeah, I just wrote and recorded the theme that they use twice a day on the Cruisin' Critters segment. So I'm a very happy man. Very happy man.
And a local celebrity, really.
I am. I was recognized at the tire store the other day by my voice. They don't know what I look like because I'm on the radio. But yeah, this guy recognized me. He goes, "Are you that guy?" And I'm like, "Yep, that's me." It's like Kansas City Star by Roger Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if Roger Miller's next, but let's find out who's coming out of the hat that we're going to talk about today. This is one that I added just because I really like this story. The Jordanaires.
Oh, wow. The Jordanaires. You know, they invented the number system, the Nashville number system, which is how all of the session players write out their charts when they're playing. They don't read music when they play. They just write out numbers. Like in any key, you have like a 1 to a 4 to a 5 to a 6 minor to, whatever. And it's just the sequence of the chords. And the reason they do that is because they, in the early days of country music, they kept changing the keys depending on the singer. If Brenda Lee came in or whoever, Patsy Cline came in and she would say, too high for me, they just drop it. And without having to write it all out again in a different key, they're just looking at a number system. And it was invented by Ray Walker, the bass singer of the Jordanaires. So I never forgot that, like when I first learned about that. And when I was recording with Ween, I brought the Ween brothers, a family act. I brought them down to Nashville to record. So I was in Nashville recording with Ween, and at a certain point I realized we need the Jordanaires to beef up a couple of these songs. We need them to come in. And so they came in, and they were amazing. They were, I think, wearing identical toupees. I'm not sure. Their hair looked amazing.
I think that's probably part of the Jordanaires uniform, right?
Kind of was. It was kind of like Devo when they wear those shiny wigs that they wear. It was kind of like
a different type of energy dome. The Jordanaires toupees.
Yeah, and it was an energy dome because when they came in, it was Gordon Stoker. Is that his name? I think so. Yeah. I think he was the leader, and Ray Walker was there. And the first song we ran down, and then the lyrics to Ween's songs are ridiculously non sequitur sometimes. And the first one,
and very tasteful too.
Yeah, well, the Jordanaires escaped that with the two songs they were on were not scatological at all. The first one was a song called "I'm Holding You," and it sounds like a ballad from a Christmas album or something. It just has this very gentle, strumming a nylon guitar and beautiful piano and everything. And I said, just do what you do. I have no suggestions. You're the Jordanaires. I really want to hear what you think ought to be on this. And they're like, okay. So they started repeating the lines in harmony of this song that makes no sense. And it was really, really great. And then we moved on to a song called Powder Blue, which has this really great chorus. Powder blue, And Ray Walker goes, you know what you need to do? You need to add a bomb in there. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, powder blue, powder blue. And we were like, you're weirder than Ween. What is wrong with you? You know? And we didn't. And again, another regret is we should have added the bomb in there. He was right. And when I hear that song now, I hear the bomb. It's kind of like, I guess he was thinking the boxer, you know, Lila, Lila.
Sure.
Lila, Lila, Lila. And he was right. That song, we would have had a number one hit if we had listened to Ray Walker, I think.
Next up from the hat, this is a favorite topic of both of ours. Rod McKuen.
Rod McKuen. Let me take a moment to fondly absorb the vibe of Rod McKuen.
You're listening to The Warm right now.
I am. I'm feeling it. My first exposure to Rod, Johnny Cash had a TV show back in the late 60s, and he brought this guy, Rod McKuen, out. And Johnny said, Rod's going to perform a poem about trains. And knowing that Rod was going to be my guest, I decided I'm going to write a poem about trains and recite one too. So they both recited songs about trains, and then they did a duet on Please Help Me If You Can. What time do the trains roll in? Whatever that song's called. I was like, wow, who is this guy? And he had like a sweater on, and he was wearing tennis shoes or something, and was very casual, sitting on a stool. And I'm like, wow. And Johnny Cash likes him. So if you get Johnny Cash's approval, you're in, you know?
Yeah.
And then I started hearing from friends and older people that he was a square and a poser and a bad poet and all this. And I'm like, what? Tell that to Johnny Cash. He'll kick your ass, you know? And so I was a Rod McKuen defender. You know, I probably fell into the temptation to make fun of him a little bit because he set himself up for it in a lot of ways, you know, by being so open, but also kind of being crafty about how open he was. There's something going on with Rod that no one has ever figured out, like how much of what he was doing was completely sincere and how much of it was the portrayal of sincerity.
Well, then how much does that matter? Because I think it was affecting all the same.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it. I was like, I don't care. I feel something. Certain poems, when I read them, I feel something. Certain songs by him, I hear them and I really feel something. And so I think he provides is the opportunity for you to feel something. You don't have to know where he's at. He gives you, he takes a layer of protection off you so you can feel something. And that's what I really like about his poetry and his music. 1999, I think it was 99, I was looking in the LA Weekly to see what was going on that weekend, and Rod McKuen was giving a concert in Thousand Oaks, California, at the Civic Plaza. And I called my friend Dan, who, not exactly a Rod McKuen fan, but ready for it. You know, he's more of a Dylanologist, so he couldn't really be a McKuen fan, but he was a fan of the self-promotion of Rod McKuen, I guess. You know, he liked the branding. Because Rod,
the shtick, even, yeah.
Rod was really good at that. He was like a walking infomercial for himself, constantly branding, and he owned everything too. Like he just invented a whole subculture that was about his work and who he was. And so we decided we were going to go. And right before we left the apartment, my friend Dan said, "Are you going to bring a book for him to sign?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't feel like carrying it." And he goes, "Bring it." Like with a real conviction, like, bring it. So I grabbed the book and we went to the show, and I'm sitting in the audience. I have a copy of Lonesome Cities in my hand, wondering why I brought it there. And in the middle of Rod's show, first of all, it was the first time I ever saw Rod McKuen, and I couldn't believe the charisma on stage. The minute he walked out, he had that theater in the palm of his hand, and he had like a pickup band. They're all reading music, so it wasn't like a rehearsed show that he did every night. And I think it was the only performance he had done in like 10 or 15 years or something. He was in hiding at that time. and did this one show. And at one point during the show, he said, I was going to read a poem from Lonesome Cities, but I forgot my copy of the book. So if there's anybody out there who has one, please bring it up. And I raised my hand, and I went down. Took the long walk down the aisle to the front of the stage, and I handed it to him, and he said, what's your name? And I said, Ben. He goes, hey, everybody, give Ben a round of applause. Thank you, Ben. You'll get your book back, don't worry. I want to see you later. And I was like, whoa. And he read the poem, and then at the end of the night, this guy comes up to me and says, I'm Rod's brother, Edward, and Rod wants to meet you and give you your book back. And I was like, oh, okay. So after, he was sitting at a table signing stuff, and afterwards I was introduced to him, and he took my book and he goes, I want to sign it for you. And he's writing, and I'm thinking, wow, he's going to put something heavy in there, very Rod McKuen, I can't wait to see what it is. It's probably spiritual, And he wrote, Dear Ben, thanks for saving my ass. Love, Rod. So we started an email exchange. He had a website called A Safe Place to Land, and I sent him an email reminding him who I was and that how much I enjoyed the concert. And his newer work, he had a book, I can't remember the name of it now, but all the poems were about aging, and they were incredible, really a forgiving, very self-forgiving and just forgiving of aging in general that I really liked a lot. And then, many years later, a friend of mine was doing a documentary on Johnny Mercer, and Rod was friends with Johnny Mercer. And they were looking for somebody to interview Rod. He had agreed to do it, but they didn't know who should interview him, and so they hired me. And then we got together and did a really long interview. And then we went back a second time and did more interview, and then he invited me to his house, which was like it was a mansion in Beverly Hills that he bought in like 1971, and it had a recording studio in the basement, but everything was antiquated down there. There, grill cloth speakers. There was a big couch and all these 2-inch reels of tape and everything. But it was abandoned. He hadn't used it like forever. But it was preserved in time, like kind of preserved in amber almost. Like the last session he did there, they hadn't cleaned up since, and that was like 1981 maybe.
Yeah.
So it was really cool, his house, but it was just Rod and Edward living there, and the pool was empty with some, weeds sticking out of it. It was really like Sunset Boulevard, the movie.
Wow.
Very quiet there. He had, I asked him, how many cats do you have? Because I kept seeing a different cat every time I looked, and he goes, I don't know. I have no idea. And,
none of my business.
Yeah,
they just live here.
And we became friends. And I always thought that his catalog was woefully undiscovered. His songwriting, because of the books and because of the image and everything, he never really got taken seriously as a great songwriter. And I thought there was a collection of songs to be presented to the world somehow. I always felt that. In fact, I had a CD that I made of the 12 or 14 songs that I thought the world ought to know about, that I was always listening to.
Your thesis statement about Rod McKuen on one compilation. Yeah,
and then I was having a conversation with Aaron Freeman, otherwise known as Gene Ween of Ween, and he's a big fan of soft rock. Like, his favorite song of all time is Shannon by Henry Gross. He cries every time he hears it because the dog died, and that's something, I don't know. It's about a dog that died, and
that's tough.
And he loves David Gates and Bread, and he just loves that stuff. So I turned him on to Rod. I started playing Rod stuff for him, and Aaron was like, "Wow, this is really, really, really good songwriting," But Rod's voice was rough. Legend has it that he blew his voice out singing "What I Say" in the Copacabana Lounge.
Night after night.
Yeah, night after night. And he was reduced to a whisper after that, which really worked for him, though, when he read his poems. Man, because you had to lean in, and he would pause, and when his voice would go down to a whisper, you almost felt like he just told you a secret that he didn't tell anyone else. It was really effective. But his singing on the records, you could tell they were good songs, but his singing sometimes was just a little too ragged to really put it over. Like Sinatra singing his songs really worked. Like Love's Been Good to Me by Sinatra is a really good example of how good his songs are when you get the right singer. You can hear it all, when you have the right singer. So Aaron and I decided to do a tribute to Rod called Marvelous Clouds, and we recorded it, and I played it for Rod, and he flipped out and wanted to meet Aaron. So Aaron came out, and we went over to Rod's house and hung out for the whole day. It was really great. Rod was a really nice guy. He was guarded with people he didn't know because he's one of those artists that people think they know the guy based on his work. It's his fault because that's how he put it out there,
Right.
Like artists who do that and then they complain about, people think they know me. I'm like, well, listen to your work. You sound knowable. You blew it. But it's,
Right. We got the peek behind the curtain with Rod. I mean, like his whole empire was based on vulnerability. So people assumed. And I think when you also are able to project so much of yourself into his poems too, it feels really personal. Like you have a connection. So I would imagine he had to be guarded.
Yeah, and at that first concert I saw by him, women were crying. They were just weeping, and they had bought the books back in the day. It was nostalgia, but it was also opening up
catharsis,
reopening wounds or something. It was really amazing. I mean, that's when I realized that Rod, I'm never going to joke about him again because I saw this kind of cathartic therapy to what he was doing that I didn't get until I saw it in person. And then I really got it because after witnessing that, I would read his stuff and go, oh yeah, Jesus, yeah, this is pulling away the curtain here, taking off the armor. I was really bummed when Rod died. That was hard. And Edward didn't live much longer than that. And Edward, very interesting guy. Rod, maybe gay, maybe bi. I never cared, but the business did and the world did when he started. So he had various answers to questions about that because it could ruin your career back then. And Edward was, I'm assuming, his partner, but somehow along the line, Rod claims that his mother adopted Edward as her son and that therefore he's his brother. He referred to him as my brother Edward constantly, and Edward would refer to himself as I'm Rod's brother Edward. Like when he introduced himself to me, he said, I'm Rod's brother Edward. And Edward died, I think only about 2 or 3 years after that. But I think the amazing thing about Rod McKuen is that he was incredibly visible. He was everywhere. He was omnipresent, ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
At the peak of his career, he was on TV. His books were everywhere. He was showing up in magazines. He was doing these birthday concerts at Carnegie Hall.
He had apparel, his jacket. What was that called? The knockaround jacket or something?
Yeah, lay around. No, almost.
Like
yeah, almost. And there are a few weirdos online who have located these, on eBay or something and are paying a lot of money for them.
I mean, I'm a weirdo. I got I think that it's from 1972, a calendar. It's on my wall now. I love my Rod McKuen calendar. Us weirdos still exist.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. No, I'm not bragging. I know this sounded like I was, but I have 2 of them. 2 different years.
Ooh, that's big.
Those calendars are amazing. Yeah, he had everything going on, right? He had everything. He even had a T-shirt that said, let me think.
I always go to bed with a Rod McKuen book or a friend who's read one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's in on the joke because he created the joke. That's what I love about him, is that it's like at the same time so serious and so vulnerable and can be so emotional, and then it's also just kind of like goofy at the same time. There's like a lightheartedness to it that's really important to him too, and I love that.
Yeah, he had a sense of humor about himself. But the interesting thing is, so as omnipresent as he was, oversaturating the market really, then he wasn't there. He just wasn't there. He just disappeared.
Yeah.
Now he did go into hibernation and he did very few live shows and everything. But at this point, it's like almost like it didn't happen. there's this kind of tapering off at the end, like a fade out, as opposed to.
Well, and it's impossible to think about how huge he was and how much he was everywhere, and then now nowhere. And who else has that ever really happened to? I mean, you can ask that, and maybe it's because we don't remember them, but like someone like Rod is still, I think his style of poetry and even his style of like self-promotion and things like that are still so embedded in our culture, but he's not as known.
Yeah, and he invented some of that stuff too, a lot of it.
Yeah.
I still think that the self-help book industry would not exist without Rod's poems early on, you know.
I agree, yeah.
You had How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies, and you had The Power of Positive Thinking and things like that, but Rod's poetry and the way he helped people with his poetry, I really believe that the self-help movement owes a whole lot to him, but they don't give him credit, you know? And I don't know why. I don't know why. There's something about Rod McKuen that people want him to not exist, or I don't know. That's probably not even.
They want to erase it from like collective memory or something. But at the same time, I mean, like, you're probably not aware of this, but people of my generation, millennials, have it's turned into a joke too, but there's like these simplistic, like they call them Instagram poets, and like Rupi Kaur is the example of them. And that's not something that would, I think, exist at all without that. And it's also like an interesting thing that it's a generational thing that we always do still kind of want to have that like little kind of, you think it's oversimplified, but it's really not. There's like that really deep layer to it, and it makes you feel something. And I think he really modernized that, and it's wild to think that he's just kind of drifted away in the collective memory.
Yeah, it is. It's really odd. It's like in Sunset Boulevard, you know, the pictures got smaller. What is that line? That
I know what you're talking
Norma
about.
Desmond. That's sort of like what happened is that what he did influenced our culture, but nobody knows it. You know, it's really interesting that his career, all of that stuff and all that visibility seemed like it never even happened. And that's like probably why he remains such an interesting character. And I still pick up a book, you know, if there's a book I see by him I don't have or haven't read, I pick it up because there's always a gem in there. And
I feel like I've been doing that for years now, where I've been, you know, every time I'm in a thrift store or something and see it, I pick it up, and I still haven't completed the collection. That's how we're talking, like, he sold millions of books and so many titles he created.
I think he released millions of titles.
Probably
not just millions of copies of a title. It's like a million title and a million albums too. I mean, it's his output was unbelievable. And if anyone feels compelled to do a little research and see his discography, and he had his own label and released records by other people and a publishing house and everything, it's really hard to believe that one man was in charge of all of that. You know, he had people helping him, but he was the visionary. He probably didn't sleep, I guess.
Probably not.
Yeah, incredibly prolific right up to the end. He wrote poetry every day. That's what he told me. Every day he would write.
Wow. All
the way to the end. And I would love to read anything by him I haven't read yet. I'm into it. I am into it.
I'm right there with you, yeah.
Interesting guy, and more important than our culture will admit, I think.
Another amazing singer and songwriter is up next. You ready for this one?
Drum roll time. Okay.
Laura Nyro.
Laura Nyro. Oh, man. I got pulled into her. That's really interesting because I got pulled into her live performance almost in the same way I got pulled into Rod's. She played a small club gig in Philly. I didn't even think she had a new record to promote. I don't know why she was there, but it was a small club called the Tin Angel. This would have been 1993 or 94, around that time. And I knew the owner of the club, so I went, and I'm standing in the back watching Laura Nyro play solo on a electric, like a keyboard, with piano sounds. She didn't have a grand piano up there. And there was this, apparently, a woman in the front table, a pregnant woman who was very drunk.
Much to consider there. Okay.
Yeah, and had to be removed. So she was removed, and my friend said, "There's your seat." And I'm like, "Wow." I can't top that, but I'll do it,
Yeah, I don't know if I can bring the same energy, but I'll try.
So I get seated right in the front, like Laura Nyro is maybe 5 feet away from me. And she's playing, and while she's playing, she's barefoot because she's Laura Nyro. And while she's playing, the sustain pedal from her piano is drifting further and further away from her foot until she can't reach it. And she stops the song and looks right at me and points to it and said, "Could you please? Could you help me?" And I was like, yeah. So I stood up and I got the sustain pedal. I put it where it should be, and then I lifted her foot and put it on the pedal. And she gave me a big smile and finished the show. And I was like, I touched Laura Nyro's foot. I touched Laura Nyro's foot.
And the show went on because you touched Laura's Nyro foot.
It did.
That's awesome.
It did. I came through again. And Laura Nyro, I just actually finished reading a biography of her, and it's mentioned in there she was attracted to both men and women, but when it came to men, her type, quoted by a friend of hers, was a Sonny Bono type.
So what, short, mustache, all of the above?
Charismatic, talented, genius, possibly murdered.
Possibly murdered?
Yes.
Esteemed congressman, all of that. She wanted the whole package. I get it.
Sonny, she had great taste.
We are in the hat. We're going to pick a name. Let's do, what is this one? Oh, this isn't a name. It's a place. Kent State.
Oh, man. Oh, my God. Oh, boy. This is a good story.
Is it?
It is, and it has nothing to do with Devo. I only recently found out. You told me, I think, or maybe I found out.
Yeah, I told you. I had to tell you because you were learning about Devo, and I am devolved. And so I filled you in that, yeah, the whole thing started with Kent State. But it doesn't sound like that's part of your story.
No, not at all. The year 1987. The Ben Vaughn combo is on tour. And when you're on tour, back in the days of college radio, quote unquote, you try to play every night to make money and get a motel and put gas in the van. So you play some questionable gigs. Like we played one dollar night in Providence, Rhode Island, and we thought that was going to be, where everybody pays $1, and we figure if enough people come, we'll be able to fill the gas tank and get a room. But it turns out they gave everybody at the door $1. That's what dollar. That was when. That's what they call. What do they call those? A character builder, I think is what they call those. And that's what show business is like. When you're in the lower rung of touring and promoting records on an independent label. I mean, that is where you are, and every band has had to deal with that. And we weren't spared, So we're in the Midwest, and the only gig my agent could find for us was opening for a metal band at a metal club in Kent, Ohio called Filthy McNasties. Okay. And
a natural fit, it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, so the Ben Vaughn combo has an accordion. And our drummer uses a hubcap on every song, right? We're not a metal band. So there's this very popular metal band, not even an original metal band. I mean, this is like a metal cover band. And the place is packed, and we go on, and the audience just starts booing. So I made a choice as a performer to egg them on. So I was saying stuff like, oh, if you like that one, you're really going to love this next song. And at one point, I have a song called Too Sensitive for This World, and I said, if you guys all want to give each other a group hug while we do this, I know it's hard to show your feelings, And then they started throwing bottles at us at that point, And so we're trying to get through the songs. Literally, like a chair flew up there at one point. And so I said to my accordion player, Gus, who is the wild card of the band, you never give that guy a microphone on stage to speak because you don't know what's going to come out, you know. So we're getting pelted and booed. And I said to Gus, say the worst thing you can think of right now. And he gives me this look like, finally. I have a chance to show my worth in this band. And he grabs the mic and he goes, hey, everybody, shut up for a second. So everybody shuts up and he goes, they didn't kill enough of you in 1970. And then it was on. The shit started flying at us, and our road manager came running up to the stage, and our sound man, Hamburger Dan, they both came up and said, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. So we're grabbing our equipment. Luckily, there was a door right behind the stage, so we kick open the door, and we're throwing our stuff. We have a relay where we're actually throwing guitar amps to another guy, and he's throwing it in the van. Boom, 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 we're getting out. And the crowd is going out the front door to come get us, right? and we finally get in the van, and we are all in the van, and we're leaving before this mob finally comes around the club and finds us. And all of a sudden, we see the club sound man banging on the side of our van, banging on the window. So I roll down the window and I go, what? And he goes, man, that was the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen. Here. And he hands us a bottle of whiskey. And then he says, get out of here now. And
Take this. You're going to need it.
Yeah, and we just screeched out of the parking lot. And that was, yeah, that's my Ken, Ohio story.
That's a good one. That's like the anti-Devo, really. I mean, they were so inspired by that event, and then you guys showed up and told them off.
Yeah, it was really, and Gus didn't mean what he said. He just thought of the craziest thing he could say to instigate. And obviously we sympathize with the victims of Kent State, but we wouldn't have minded so much if a room full of metalheads died. That wouldn't have bothered us. But we had to leave with dignity. That's how we felt. We had to leave with dignity. Dignity and no money. Because we left before we could get paid. But that's showbiz, Showbiz, like what I was saying before about Providence, Rhode Island. Back probably about 15, 20 years ago, I'm at this Hollywood party because I'm doing music for TV at that point, and I was getting invited to places like that, and they actually let me in. And I was
on the guest list, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm standing there with a handful of hors d'oeuvres or something, and the guy I went with was this director, and he spots Janine Garofalo across the room. So we go over, and he knew her, and he introduces me, and he tells her, this guy is someone you really need to know. He's a very talented TV composer. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm in. You can't get a better introduction. Mm-hmm. And then he says, Ben Vaughn. And she says, Ben Vaughn. Hold it. Ben Vaughn. The Ben Vaughn something. The Ben Vaughn group. The Ben Vaughn band. Oh, I got it. The Ben Vaughn combo. I saw you in Providence, Rhode Island on Dollar Night.
And you're like, no one else was supposed to remember that. And
yeah.
She did. You ready to sing us a song, Ben?
I am. I have my guitar right here. Here's a nice, beautiful chord for you. That's a C major
Beautiful.
7. Bread made a lot of money on that chord. Anyway, I'm ready.
That's the bread money chord.
It is. Sure.
Let's hope this next song is in that key. I'm going to pull from the song hat here. Looking for a 7-Eleven.
I couldn't be further off from that key. That's in this key. Right there. I'm using a pick, by the way, which I don't usually do. So, wow, looking for a 7-Eleven. Let me see if I can remember that second verse. I guess we'll find out.
Let's find out.
Okay, here we go. Well, I'm driving in my car and it's 3 a.m. and I don't know where in the world I am. It makes no difference if I don't know my way around. As long as I got a 7-Eleven in every town. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. Here comes one now. I need an RC, cola, and some Rolaids too. A microwave burrito, set on number 2. 24-hour counterman, service with a smile. I'll eat it in my car and I'll see you in a while. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. I'm looking for a 7-Eleven. Here comes another one.
You have just enjoyed another installment of Straight from the Hat with Ben Vaughn. To learn more about the names drawn from the hat for this episode, please visit straightfromthehat.com. Don't forget to tell a friend about this podcast. And please, subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice.